only for killing a police officer or a prison guard. In his final report on crime and punishment, Bill Plant tonight takes a look at the kind of offender law enforcement officials most want to reach, the juvenile.
Two squad cars responded to the early morning radio call. Burglary in progress. The intruder was familiar to them, a 13-year-old boy from the neighborhood.
Come on out of there. Come on. Now, we fooled with you long enough. Now, come on down.
We'll put the dog up here and let the dog on in the wall.
The boy's name is Charles, and he is no stranger. He's been caught in more than a half-dozen burglaries. Yet, because he's a juvenile, his record is confidential, to be destroyed and presumably forgotten when he reaches 18, no matter how much longer it gets. In some places, no records are kept at all.
Your ass belongs to me, boy. I'm gonna fix you. And you can't say too much now, because I get you now. I bet you that. Big enough to break in here, you big enough to take some consequences.
Because Charles is under 18, what he has done isn't called burglary. Instead, it's classified as an act of juvenile delinquency.
No, it wasn't. You talking about earlier this evening.
Because juveniles are routinely supposed to be given another chance, they get off a lot more easily than someone a few years older, whether the crime is burglary or murder. This is supposed to give youngsters a chance to straighten out, but the juvenile crime problem keeps growing, and some observers believe the system is entirely too lenient. Charles, for instance, has never spent any time in jail, just a couple of nights in a detention center. But if he had been convicted as an adult with everything he's been charged with, the same offenses would have cost him years, possibly life, behind bars. Crime is a problem of the young. Fully 50% of all crimes are committed by people under 18, and they're often crimes of violence. In Chicago last year, juveniles committed a third of the murders. In San Francisco, more than half of all felony crimes. More than 1.5 million juveniles were arrested in 1975. In California, there are 11 youth detention centers, 3 of them maximum security institutions, to which the courts send young people who have committed crimes as serious as murder, rape, and armed robbery. The treatment at these institutions includes solitary confinement. They have usually come from problem homes and been arrested many times before they are sent away.
I needed somebody to stay with me, and if I was doing something wrong, to come behind me and pick me up. I have my mom, and she can't do it herself.
What about your father?
Well, he ain't there, but if he was there and kicked me around a little bit, I don't think I would have done it.
How many times have you been arrested?
26. I learned now that it ain't a game because they don't want to play with you no more.
Across the nation, more than 75,000 juveniles are in custody in 2,500 public and private institutions. And authorities say that if they had more room, they'd have the young people to fill it. A number of states now are considering legislation which would stiffen the penalties for juvenile offenders. Police complain that lighter penalties for juveniles are one reason adult criminals often use juveniles as decoys, particularly in drug dealing.
It doesn't take massive draconian punishment at the early stages of the process, but we become so soft and wishy-washy at the early stages of the process that we tend to encourage crime.
I'll be about 75 years old when I get out of here. Is that what you're looking forward to?
This is an experiment in what might be called shock therapy at Rahway Prison in New Jersey. Young people who have had problems with the law are taken to this maximum security prison for an encounter with inmates who once started down that same road and are now doing time for things like robbery and murder. This program was developed by the inmates themselves, who said that little was done to help them when they were younger.
Get off that train, man. Get off that juvenile train. Don't think that all that little stuff that y'all doing now, you're gonna get away with it forever.
1,000 youngsters from the Newark area have been through this, and so far, only a handful have had new problems with the law.
The juvenile justice system today does not do an adequate job. All these kids seem to know about the criminal justice system is that they're talked to. They're talked to by judges, by probation officers, by correctional counselors. What they really need, it seems to me, is certainty of being caught and certainty of being punished.
The treatment of juvenile offenders is an even greater dilemma than that of adults. Young people can be put away for a while, but they will inevitably learn more about crime on the inside. And when they return to their homes, whatever problems exist, family discord, drugs, alcohol, peer pressure, will still be there.
If you take a kid from the South Bronx on 135th Street and you send him to school, educate him a little bit, qualify him, give him some therapy, he becomes a perceptive, intelligent human, normal human being, then you send him back to 135th Street. He will be the only sane man on that block, and that will drive him crazy.
Almost nothing we have done to punish criminals has had much effect in reducing crime. Jails are warehouses with few resources to help people when they first get into trouble. Prison rehabilitation programs are judged to be generally ineffective. Parole, probation, and work release often fail for lack of supervision. We cannot decide whether we are too strict or too lenient with juvenile offenders.
You want to come get him tonight?
Yeah, I'll come and get him.
Most Americans do not want to live in a police state, but they are demanding freedom from the fear of crime, and they want criminals to be punished. One answer is simply to build more prisons and fill them up, to remove criminals from society no matter what the cost. Another is a complete overhaul of our criminal justice system, with a lot more attention to the conditions in society which cause crime. But that is an enormous commitment, and one which we have up to now been unwilling to make. Bill Plant, CBS News, New York.
Former Louisiana Congressman Richard Tonry today entered a federal